Welcome to episode 1 of Life After Service. I'm John, and today we're going to be going over the top 5 tips when leaving the military. So, just for today's episode, we're going to go over a real brief intro just because this is the first episode to give you a little bit of background of exactly what we're doing here. So, this show is designed for either people that have already gotten out of the military and they're not sure where to go, what to do, or they're on active duty still, guard or reserve, currently going through that ETS process or getting ready to separate. And again, they're not sure exactly what those next few steps are going to look like. So I found that looking up some stats, there's approximately 200,000 people each year that go through that process of military to civilian. And there's certainly people in that boat that aren't sure exactly what's coming up next. So my goal is to use the experiences that I've had over the past few years of going through that process to give some lessons and tips to hopefully help other people. So the topics that we're going to cover in this show, there's going to be a variety of them. Um, so some of the ones that we have here are tips for going through that transition process. What to do when you start to enter the civilian job market. So for myself, for example, I joined right after high school, and when I got out, I never knew or I never had to write a resume or a cover letter or go through a job interview besides maybe like a promotion board in the military. That was the closest thing to it. But a lot of these experiences were kind of learned as I went once I got out of the military. Next one we go over is different education benefits. So a lot of people are familiar with the post 9/11 GI Bill, or if you're a little bit older, maybe the Montgomery GI Bill. And then there's a few other lesser known ones that are out there, and we're going to go over the steps and the benefits and all that with that. Next one is workout routines and trying to get back into a habit. So when a lot of people get out of the military, that tends to be one of the first things that go. So they get out, and for a number of years they've done PT every morning or at the end of the duty day, and they get out, and the first thing they want to do is kind of relax. And I get that. I went through that same thing myself, but uh, the thing is that it can turn into an extended process, and that's something that happened to me. I got out, uh, not really planning to spend more than a week or so, not doing much, kind of relaxing, playing Call of Duty and all that. And it ended up turning into 5 or 6 months of weight gain, drinking a ton of beer, prestiging multiple times in Call of Duty, and really not having a lot of purpose or meaning outside of that. So fitness is definitely something. I'll give you guys some tips as far as working out and running and stuff like that to help implement your own daily schedule there. And last one is going to be just kind of basic lifestyle stuff. So whether that's nutrition, sleep. Sleep's a huge one because a lot of people um, have issues with that while they're in, and certainly while they get out. Um, and stress relief and stuff like that. So we're going to cover different episodes based off of all those things there. And if you see me looking off to the side, it's just because I have my show notes here that I'm looking at. Uh, so how you can help out with this channel? Again, we're starting from scratch, from the ground level here. The first thing you can do is to subscribe to it. I'm going to try and put out a video at least once a week. Um, so definitely subscribe to it. And even more than that, if you know someone, even if it's just one person that is they've already gotten out or they're currently going through that transition process, and you think that they could benefit from that, please let them know about this channel. Because again, there's going to be a lot of good content and information that we're going to cover. So with that, let's get into again top 5 tips when leaving the military. So the first one is to write out a plan and have a contingency to that plan. And if you know military members, they're certainly familiar with this because pretty much everything you do, there's some type of planning aspect that's involved with it. So again, this applies whether you're already out or you're getting out. Is to sit down, spend a few hours, just going through exactly what you want to accomplish in the next few months. What type of job are you looking for? What steps, different phases that you can go through. So maybe you spend a few weeks, relaxing if that's something that you want to do, and then after that, you really get deep into the process of finding the job, preparing your resume and all that stuff. Whatever those next steps are going to look like for you. But regardless, the first thing you want to do is have that plan in place, because when you don't have that plan, that's when complacency kind of creeps in, and the 1 week of relaxation turns into 1 month, 2 months, and pretty soon you're 6 months down the road and you don't really know um, nothing's happened over the past few months. And it's basically been a waste of time. So certainly have that plan in place, and then contingency plans, because a lot of times that first plan isn't going to work out. So this is something that happened to me. I got out. My original plan was to do 1 or 2 years contracting, and then after that, I was going to open up a gym using all the savings from the contracting job. That didn't turn out. I got out in again 2012, and at that time they were going through the drawdown. So a lot of the contracting jobs um, that were all over the place as I was getting out weren't there anymore. And so I had to look at other means of where to work, what city to live in, all the stuff. So it definitely changed my plans. I think if I had at least a contingency plan to that, then things certainly would have turned out differently. What I had to do was basically on the fly kind of figure out what was happening, and the whole time I was draining funds, as I was going through that process of trying to figure out what to do. So tip number one: have a plan, and then have contingency backups to that plan. Tip number two is to secure your finances. So as you get out, again, there can be a lot of uncertainty of exactly what's going to happen. And the last thing you want to do is find, log into your bank account and find that there's a negative balance in there, or you're close to it. You got like $100 left, and you're scrambling to try and figure out what to do next. So I was fortunate enough when I got out, uh, the year leading up to getting out of the military, I was on deployment. So if you deployed before, a lot of times it's really easy to save money during that deployment. I was fortunate enough that I had that kind of cushion to help push me through as I was going through that transition process. But regardless, you want to start planning this as far in advance as you can. You want to start building up that cushion just in case the unexpected happens. So whether it's putting, $50 away every paycheck, or $100, whatever you can afford, even if you have to adjust your budget each paycheck, you should be putting some type of amount into that savings, just because you never know exactly what's going to happen, regardless of how good your plan might be. So, tip number two: secure your finances. Tip number three is to have your resume ready. So, as you go through the transition process, you're most likely going to go through. I know in the Army, I think it was called TAP. It's just a transition program, but during that time, a lot of people aren't really focused on the briefing. So you're doing briefing after briefing, going to all these out processing locations, and that's the only thing you're focused on is just getting out. I got to get through uh, these 3 or 4 briefings today, and I get to go home and I get to relax. So you're not really paying attention. You're not taking notes. They give you handouts and stuff like that in a lot of these briefings, but a lot of times those go right in the trash for people. So one of the things that they do go over is like resumes and cover letters, how to do all that stuff. But again, if you're not paying attention to that stuff, then you get out and you're scrambling again, trying to figure out exactly how to write a resume. Um, so certainly the what I think would be the most optimal thing would have that ready as you're going through that transition process. And a lot of times at these briefings, um, they'll they'll have people there that can review your resumes and kind of give you some pointers and tips on how to format it and mold it based off of whatever job you're looking for as you get out. So have that resume ready. Tip number four is pay attention to the out processing briefings, and we just covered a lot of this. They do go over a lot of good resources, whether it's how to use things like your GI Bill, or again the resume and the job search process. They cover a lot of that, but again, you need to actually pay attention and digest that information in order to get any type of benefit out of that. So certainly pay attention to it. I know a lot of those briefings are going to be boring and stuff like that, but at least use those handouts, make a few notes, and maybe review them um, at at a later date to get that process started. But definitely don't take it for granted, because there is a lot of information available to you, and if you don't, you kind of just disregard that stuff, it's going to bite you later on. So definitely pay attention. And tip number 5 is to start the job search early. So as you're getting out, and you can kind of plan, a little bit of uh, like relaxation time and stuff like that as you get out. So when you like apply for jobs, you go through the interview process and stuff like that. One of the things is they'll ask when you're available to start. So you can factor in that kind of relaxation time if that's something you're interested in, or if you're lucky, you can transition. You out process and ETS. Your final out processing is maybe on Friday, and then Monday you start your civilian job. That would be optimal. But a lot of times for people that don't go through these steps, um, that doesn't happen. But you definitely want to start that early, because it does take a little bit of time to go through. A lot of these jobs will have application windows of when you can put in your application, and then from there, someone will review the applications, and they'll kind of weed out the ones that aren't qualified, contact the ones that are, go through the in-person or remote interviews, and then select the top candidate from there. But again, a lot of times this can take at at the least maybe a week or two, but in most cases you're looking at a month, plus, to go through this entire process of submitting, going through the interview process, and then finally figuring out a start date and doing all your in processing at the new job. So start that early. I'd say even 2 to 3 months early, just to give yourself that cushion of time, uh, and of course they'll work with you as you're getting out. Um, you're not going most likely not going to be able to work a civilian job and a military job at the same time. But if you are selected for it, you could tell them, you get out on this date, and then the following week or two after that is when I'm available for it. But if you if you don't start that early, like I didn't, then you're left trying to figure out things as you go. You're applying for basically any job you can find just because you want something. So that's tip number 5: start your job search early. So again, to recap the 5 tips we went over today, the first one is write out your plan and have a contingency to that plan. Tip 2: secure your finances, have that savings built up before you get out. Number 3: have your resume ready. Number 4: pay attention in the out processing briefings. And then number 5: start your job search early. So again, that wraps up episode 1, guys. I do ask, please help support us here so we can get this message out by subscribing to the channel. And again, if you know anyone that is going through this process, or they've gotten out recently and they're not really sure what these next steps are going to look like, let them know about the channel. So there's a lot of resources. We're going to be covering different topics in these next few weeks, and I know people can find benefit from it. It's just a matter of getting that word out there, so we can help as many veterans as possible. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in episode 2.